Hello, everyone. We're having a special day at the History Center today. My name is Jackie Geringer McDermott, and we're going to be talking about the great bank robbery in North English in 1938. We're going to start with Dave Jackson telling us the background of the story. Take it away, Dave.
Greetings, everybody. It was a quiet day in the rural town of North English, Iowa on June 16, 1938. As the noon hour approached, the business callers on Main Street turned their attention to lunch. At the Farmers Savings Bank, Opal Wymore was the sole bank teller left to tend to business over the lunch hour. She was alone in the bank when the bandits walked in. They brandished their guns and announced the holdup. They stepped behind the counter and emptied out the cash drawer. All told, they made it away with about $904. Two others awaited in the getaway car. A second bank was later robbed in Hedrick, Iowa by the same gang. It wasn't until the following fall that the four were arrested. In the ensuing months were a series of bungled investigations, multiple false arrests of innocent people, and even a shooting of two men in Illinois thought to be the North English bank robbers. Fast forward to June 2025, when an email inquiry came into the History Center regarding the nefarious gang of four bank robbers who pulled off the heist nearly 90 years ago. The story that unfolded was the intersection of love, crime, young minds, and misguided deeds, and could easily fuel a couple episodes of a TV crime series. The news made the headlines and front pages of newspapers across the state. Police departments were on high alert. Once the robbers were apprehended and arrested, the headlines were filled with weeks of trial proceedings from the county courthouses of Marengo and Sigourney. And the details laid out a story that Norman McDonald of Victor, Iowa, was the mastermind of the gang that knocked off the North English and Hedrick banks. Here's one where they even shot a couple guys in Illinois and thinking they were the North English bank robbers. And the witnesses from here in North English were then transported to Illinois to, in one case, see if they could identify the body and also the live brother of the man that was shot. We have Sharon Hall with us today, the granddaughter of two of the bank robbers, the husband and wife team of William and Norman McDonald. Norman McDonald was said to have planned and arranged the heist, dressed as a man in bib overalls, blue shirt, straw hat, and bandana, and left her two young daughters sitting in the getaway car while she took an active role in robbing the banks. Through the years, there had been some hushed whispers in the McDonald family about some connection to a bank robbery in Iowa. Our guest, Sharon Hall, wanted to know more about her family history and verify if her grandparents were somehow connected. We have Sharon with us today, and she is willing to share more about finding her own roots. Sharon really owns this story. And I'll turn it over to Jackie, who is, you know, it just strikes me, the daughters in the getaway car, back in 1938. And this is like a first edition of Take Your Daughters to Work Day. So, Sharon, it's good to have you here, and I'm going to turn this over to Jackie, who's going to further introduce and then interview you.
Well, Sharon, I know we've made kind of a big deal about this, but we really do want to talk to you about how you learned about all this stuff and how it's related to finding your roots. That's our big thing. We're not making fun of the fact that it happened in 1938. It's historical stuff, and we're enough removed from it now that we can look at it like we do on television when we're talking about the roots. We know you had not heard much about the bank robberies growing up. What had you heard in your family?
Just that it happened. but not a lot of details.
And when did you first become interested in finding out more about the connection to your grandparents?
When my husband and I were talking about family history.
Did you or other members of your family ever discuss or ask questions from your grandparents? Did you talk to them about it?
We tried to at a family reunion, and he basically said different time, different person, and he would not discuss it.
Yeah. You've obviously done a lot of research on your family roots on Ancestry and other venues. What inspired you to dig deeper? Why did you want to learn more?
We wanted to know how it really played out and what really happened.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that was most interesting to me too, was how it actually all came about. And we know that they were from respected families, and as we've learned recently, Norma was actually pregnant at the time and had 2 little girls, and so that was, why did this all happen? When we first contacted the History Center in North English, you obviously were not aware that your grandparents were so deeply involved, and that Grandma Norma was accused of being the masterminds of the 2 robberies. Did that information surprise you?
It didn't really surprise us, but she was a very domineering person, so on that end, didn't surprise us either.
Yeah, that would make sense. She was telling everybody what to do. Mm-hmm. How did you react to learning that your mother and aunt were young children and were stowed away in the getaway car by your grandmother while she was directing and assisting in the bank heists?
It's pretty sad and pathetic from my point.
Yeah, it is kind of sad that those kids could have got hurt. The 4 bank robbers were relatively young people in their 20s. They came from well-respected families in the Victor area. They knew each other well in high school. What do you think motivated them to pull off these bank robberies?
Manipulating and I think they're very greedy.
That makes sense. Your grandparents were convicted as accessory to the robberies and received 25-year sentences. However, your grandmother served less than a year in the state penitentiary. Why do you think that was?
I think that she was a smooth talker, and she used the young kids to get out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. She had 3. I didn't know that side of her personality, which you knew in later years when you knew her. Just from reading the documents, I didn't realize she was that way. But I could see where they would have thought that somebody needed to take care of these 3 little children. Are there other members of your family who are as equally interested in the family history, or do they own it like you do?
I think they all are interested in finding out more about it, and there's only a few of them, that kind of feel kind of weird about bringing it up. And
yeah, and I think we should also point out too, the other bank robbers did get life. They didn't serve life either. I looked at the census records, and they were out by 1950 census. She was out already by the 1940 census, so she didn't even spend 2 years in jail. So we think that they went forever, but they didn't. How has this trip from Indiana worked out for you so far? When you're visiting North English and the Hedrick Bank buildings, did you experience any particular insights or emotions?
It's very interesting and exciting to find out more information, and I've enjoyed our visit.
Good. We're glad you came. We really are.
Yes.
It's been exciting for us, too, to learn more about this. And it also gave us a reason to, like you said, look more at the census records and read all of the different things that are in the newspapers about it.
Jackie, if I could add just real briefly that our former editor for the North English Record, Carl Hogendorn was there in the area that day, and he had interviewed a lot of people, and he wrote an article for the very next record in his People's column in 1938. And Carl, based on all the interviewing and hearsay around town, had this picture well put together long before any investigators, and he mentioned in there that the day after, there were more federal agents, county agents, you name it, anybody connected with law enforcement in the greater area. I mean, this literally, and he said, was the front page news of all the Midwest newspapers. But he had interviewed a lot of witnesses, and he said at the time that there were at least 20 people who had 20 different stories and saw the bandits in 20 places at the same time. But what he did say was there was evidence that there was a gun mall, and that was a slang term in the early 1900s for a woman bank robber who was involved with other bank robbers pulling off these heists, and sometimes was seen as the mastermind or the brains behind. And so Carl had called it, and a number of other things. And as mentioned earlier, this was on front pages everywhere. And so it's a fascinating story, but they didn't get it solved fully until the testimony in the courts. They had trials in both Marengo and Sigourney. And obviously because there was a bank in Iowa County and a bank in Keokuk County.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to add that Carl really came out with a lot of information a week later. And he said that this was, some of it was hearsay, but a lot of it turned out to be true.
And I'd also like to add that the young boy that was on site that day, his name was Robert Plank Sr.,
Yep.
and Bobby was a high school student, and he got the plate number of the vehicle. Well, they traced that plate number that had been stolen from Victor, Iowa, from the car dealership. And so that led the county attorney, who was Harold Claypool at the time, to believe that it was a local deal, because why else would they be in Victor stealing a license plate unless it was someone from this area? And to my weekly listeners, I'd like to mention that Harold Claypool was related to me, and he was related to Lib from our stories each week. He was a cousin to all of us here, several of us here in North English, so that made that part of the story more interesting too. And back to Sharon for the last question. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for our listeners who may be digging into their own family history?
I think it's well worth the time, and if you're interested, find out, because it does disappear. The history does disappear. So,
Yeah. And I want to show pictures from the North English point of view. This is Opal Wymore. She was the teller. She lived to be 105 years old. So it hasn't been that long that she passed away. She was just a small, tiny little woman. And here's a picture of her and her sister, Marie Cassidy, and Russell Ferris, who was in the bank that day also. They both had stepped out to lunch, and Opal was the only one left in there. And then this picture was recreated by the Ottumwa newspaper when they came to town. They showed a car which would have been like it, and it's sitting in front of the bank building. And the bank building still is there, although it's no longer the bank. The bank's been moved to another part of town. And Sharon, if you'll hand me those books over there, I want to show the listeners a couple more things while we're talking about the whole thing. This is a picture of Robert Plank. He was killed while he was in service in 1944, and his wife was pregnant at the time with their son, Robert Plank Jr., who we knew as Bob Plank. And then I found some pictures of after the holdup. The locals will get a kick out of this one. John Axmere, who had founded the savings bank 41 years ago, when the bank, which he now serves as president, was held up and robbed by armed gunmen Thursday afternoon, Axmere hurried from his home in Sigourney to the bank, where he is checking his losses. There's lots of Axmere relation here today. I thought I'd show him that. And then in the newspaper, they described Opal as plucky and good-looking, and that she was alone in the Farmer Savings Bank when it happened.
You know, talking with her daughter, Pat Dennison, Opal was not afraid of anything. So, you know, some people may have said that Opal was terrified from this incident. She wasn't. In fact, that day she was giving interviews to some of the news folks that showed up, and she flat out said, these were her words, amateurs and greenhorns. They were just young kids, basically. So, anyway.
And here's a picture of Robert Plank that during that week that the Ottumwa Courier had him pose outside. They came back for like a little recreation. And then here is Russell Ferris and Opal inside. And I think that we've shown the rest of them. Other than the story about when Opal and Robert Plank then went to Kankakee, Illinois, and tried to identify the people, but of course they weren't over there. And it happened to be a person that they had in jail, and then they had to look at a dead body also. And then here's from the history book. We've recreated some of them in the history book too, if you want to learn more about it. And that's about all I've got to say. Dave, you got anything else you want to talk about?
It's nice you and your family came through and stopped at the History Center, and also went to the Keokuk County Historical Society, and I understand they helped you a bit.
Yes.
And then you took a trip over to the courthouse in Sigourney and the bank in Hedrick, and so we're all in Iowa, and I see you have an Iowa shirt on. That's just wonderful.
Yeah.
But we're all happy to help and be a part of helping you further research your story. And like Jackie said earlier, it's nice to see people that own, you know, when you're even on the show, Finding Your Roots, often the people on that show find out things about their ancestors' past, and like you, they often own it, and so as Jackie mentioned, this is all about the history and finding out more about your family. And as you say, sometimes the history disappears. So it was good to have you here, you and your family, and
yeah, it really has been a joy to meet you guys. It really has.
It really has for us too. We've really enjoyed it. You guys are very pleasant and welcoming, and I think that we all really liked it.
Oh, and we need to mention Treasure.
Sincere Treasure.
Sincere Treasure. Their granddaughter Sincere is here, and she's named after one of the little girls, which would have been her great aunt. Yeah, come on around.
Go around.
We'll let you be on. We'll let you be on camera. You're a kid.
There you go.
There you go. You can tell your future generations you got to come to North English, Iowa, and learn about the big bank robbery.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to call it a net wrap, I think, aren't we, Dave?
Yes, thank you all.
Thank you all for coming, and that's it for this time.
Thanks, guys.